Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard. I'm Captain X. This is the final season of MW2 Warzone before we get into MW3 Warzone. So this is the Season 6 update, and there is a pretty decent amount of changes. It's a lot of buffs and nerfs to different guns. I think we're going to have a decent shakeup in the meta in this final season. So let's jump right into things here. This is on callofduty.com on the patch notes if you want to read this and check it out for yourself here. But what I do want to point out here, and I'm excited about this, is on October 17th, we're going to get a lot of the different haunting Halloween-esque modes. If you remember the haunting of Verdansk way back in Warzone 1, there were several other zombie type modes we did in Cold War and Vanguard. That stuff is coming on October 17th. We're going to have like some night mode, some different zombie modes. So there is more info in the blog about that if you want to check that out. Now, as we keep scrolling down, next we have the Battle Pass here. And I will say the Battle Pass actually does look pretty solid this season. There's the different operators and stuff are pretty unique. A lot of very kind of like Halloween-esque type theme things. The tier 100 skin is the Spawn skin, which is from like a older TV series, like kind of back in like the 90s. But it looks really cool. And there's some really cool operators, cool camos, stuff like that. So might be worth checking out. There will be a Black Cell variant, again, like they have done in the previous seasons, where you can get some additional operator skin variants and you get a bunch of like tier skips and things like that if you want to check that out. Now, one thing that is cool about the Black Cell is that there is a new smoke grenade variant. So that smoke grenade is going to look completely different if you pay for Black Cell. It's unfortunate. I don't think it's going to be like an advantage, but it's going to be like a graphical type thing. So here's some more information about Black Cell. Kind of like a cyber robot theme for Valeria is going to be one of the main operator skins as well. It's going to come with one of the attack dogs, which is like a robotic attack dog. And this does serve as a finishing move. But if it works like it did previously, if you're running high alert, your dog will growl, and it's kind of like an additional little cue when people are looking at you. So it's kind of an advantage to have this, unfortunately, I will say. Here's a better look at the tier 100 Spawn skin right here. A lot of new operator bundles coming. We have Lilith, which is from Diablo because Activision owns Diablo. Another one here, I think this also is related to Diablo type skin. Ash from Evil Dead 2. We have a Van Helsing type skin, kind of a vampire type esque thing. Looks pretty cool there. And then Skeletor, which was from another old TV series, is also coming as well in a bundle. So again, they're talking about the haunting here that is coming on October 17th, which will be fighting zombies and stuff. This mode was super fun back in Verdansk, so hopefully they can replicate something like that. Now let's talk about the new weapons. We have the TR-76 Geist, and this is supposed to be kind of like very similar to what the Ram 7 was in Warzone. However, I don't think it's going to handle quite the same because this is going to be a hard-hitting 7.62 round. So it'll probably be a little bit slower shooting than what the Ram 7 was back in Warzone 1, but it says it's going to be highly adaptable, hard-hitting. So hopefully this will be a very good gun, a new gun to kind of shake up the meta a little bit. And then just like the RAM or the TR-76, there's also the ISO 9mm. Both of these you will be able to obtain via the Battle Pass. You don't have to purchase the Battle Pass. It just makes it easier to unlock it if you do pay for the Battle Pass. But this is going to be like a faster variant of the ISO 45 SMG. It says high fire rate, maneuverability, exceptional steadiness. So probably low recoil as well. This thing will probably be a lot of fun because it'll probably be a really fast movement kind of running gun for aggressive players. Will probably be pretty good, but we'll have to see. And then we have a new melee weapon, the Dual Kamas. And again, this is obtained via the Battle Pass. Now we have a new attachment on the Lockwood 300. This is like the double barrel type shotgun. There's a dual trigger attachment coming so that you can shoot both rounds at the exact same time. So it'll probably make it so that if you're super close, you can technically one-shot someone. Still a very hard shotgun to use because you have to reload right after that, but it could make it interesting. Okay, getting into weapon balancing here. Now I want to point out this is Modern Warfare 2 only, meaning this is multiplayer only, and these things that I'm about to read do not affect Warzone. A lot of this stuff is just changes to the ranges. There's not any like crazy things in here. Lockman Shroud, which is that new burst MP5, did get a buff to its chest damage, had a reduction in some of its damage ranges. The Mini Bach got a buff to its damage ranges. Kastov 7.62 got some nerfs close range and buffs a mid range for its damage ranges. FR Advancer buffed the damage range. Cronin Squall, buff the damage range 7.62, damage range SO14, buff the damage range TAC V, buff the damage range. So a lot of just changing ranges on things. Probably not going to like completely shake up the meta in multiplayer, but some changes there. Shotguns, Bryson 800 got a nerf to its range. Expedite got a buff to its mid range. MX Guardian got a nerf to its close range. Marksman rifles, we've got the Tempest Torrent getting a nerf to its ranges. Lockwood MK2 got a buff to several of its ranges and some better movement speeds as well. SAB 50 got a buff, several different buffs to its movement and things like that. SPR got a buff to damage range. Okay, that was just multiplayer. Now we're getting into the Warzone changes. So starting with assault rifles here, and I'm just going to point out, I think we're going to see a pretty big shakeup in the long range meta, especially here. Chimera did get a buff to its lower torso damage. That meaning its stomach shots. So basically the gun will be more forgiving if you're missing chest shots now. FR Advancer got a buff to its limb damage. So if you miss shots and hit the arms and legs, it's going to do more damage. Basically meaning it's more forgiving. ISO Hemlock got a nerf, and I think the ISO Hemlock was in a pretty good position overall, but it might fall out even again with a nerf to its neck damage multiplier and a nerf to its chest damage multiplier. So still probably the lowest recoil gun, but probably will fall out as being a viable meta option. Now the Kastov 7.62 is getting a really big nerf, it seems. We'll have to see how big of a changes these actual like damage decreases are and range decreases are, but a lot of things here. The close damage, so the actual like TTK or how much damage it does per bullet is being decreased at close range, but that range is increased, so it'll have longer until that drop off hits. Head, neck, and chest multipliers all decrease. So I would expect the Kastov 7.62 to probably take at least one more bullet to kill, and it's going to really make that time to kill slower since it's a slower shooting gun. M13B also got a pretty big nerf. This was probably one of my favorite ARs to run this season. Close damage, the actual damage was decreased, and the range was decreased. Also, the mid damage was decreased as well. So just it's a pretty big nerf close to mid range for the M13. Now the M13C, which is that like smaller variant, more that like sniper support variant, got a buff. So this is probably going to be a very good option to run as a sniper support. Got a buff to its close range damage and also a buff to its leg extremity multipliers. The problem with M13C, where I think it struggles meta wise, is it has very slow bullet velocity. So it's hard to use it as an actual long range gun, and you kind of are forced to use it as like a sniper support. The M16 got a pretty nice buff as well, it seems. So buff to its damage, or I'm sorry, its damage range was increased, but its lower torso damage multipliers and limbs, so I think basically saying legs and arms, were all the multipliers were buffed. So it's probably going to be more forgiving if you miss center mass shots. I think they're trying to like sneak the M16 in a burst to make it viable, but it's very hard to balance burst metas because you either make them like busted way too good. Like if you remember the M16 and what was the other one? The AUG back in Warzone 1 were crazy good. And then when they nerfed them, they were awful. It's really hard to balance these guns. The Cronin Squall got nerfed again, a pretty small one though, just its mid damage range was decreased. So just a little bit less range on that mid damage range drop off. FTAC Recon got another big buff here. This is a gun that is insane. It has one of the fastest TTKs in the entire game, but it's very limited in terms of how much ammo it has. I think it's like a 15 or 20 round mag. So it's really good as like a solo sniper support, but it's really hard to use otherwise, but a lot of buffs to its damage multipliers. The 7.62, I cannot believe they buffed this one. Got buffs all around to its damage, close damage range increase, and a bunch of multipliers increase. The 7.62 already had one of the most crazy TTKs. You can run it long range with a lot of recoil or run it as like an SMG sniper support. This thing kills people crazy fast, but it is hard to use because of the recoil. Then we got the SO14 with a pretty big buff as well. It got a buff to its damage range at close and mid, and it got a buff to literally all of its damage ranges. And then the far damage, its long range damage was increased. So SO14 was actually pretty good and kind of underrated this last season. Might really sneak back into the meta again. TAC V has been nerfed several times, but it did get buffed again. So they're trying to kind of bring it back. I think the last nerf was a little bit too much. So we got a buff to the close damage and also the close damage range and also a mid damage range increase. So close to mid range TAC V will be even better now. Several adjustments to handguns or pistols. We've got some buffs to the Basilisk, which is like the Magnum. The F-Tac Siege, which is that automatic pistol that everyone uses underwater, did get a nerf. It'll still, I'm sure, be very good underwater because it shoots underwater and SMGs don't for whatever crazy reason. So we got a nerf to its headshot and nerf to its lower torso. So basically, you just have to hit chest shots more with the F-Tac Siege now. The GS Magna, which is like that Deagle variant, did get a nerf to its close range damage, but then a buff to its mid-range, and some upper multipliers were decreased. So overall, a nerf to the GS Magna. P890s overall got a pretty nice buff. Its mid and far damage were increased. Also, some multipliers were increased. The X12 pistols got a pretty nice buff here. And keep in mind, the P890 and X12s are often the starting pistols. So your starting pistols just got even better in Warzone. Just keep that in mind for Resurgence players at least. Then you've got the new 9mm Damon pistol, which did get a nerf actually. I hadn't really used that one, so maybe that one was a little bit overpowered. And then the Deagle got a pretty nice buff. The Deagle's always been a fun one to use. Another gun that is a starting pistol, so that one did get a pretty nice buff as well to its damage. Now coming up on shotguns, the Bryson 800 got buffed, but then the Bryson 890 got nerfed. So I think the 890 had kind of taken over as a little bit better of the pump one. They're both really hard to use. Like if you actually pair it up against a good player who's running like a Lockman sub SMG, very hard to actually go, but they are fun to use in certain situations. You can two pump people with them. The Lockwood 300 did get some buffs again. Remember, this is the one that got that double trigger attachment. So maybe could be really fun to use, to be honest. We'll have to see. MX Guardian, which is that full auto shotty that got added a few seasons ago, did get several buffs as well to its damage and damage ranges. This thing is actually really good TTK-wise, but is horrible at mobility. So if you want to camp in a room, this is probably the shotgun to use. I hate to say that. Sniper rifles, the Karak 300, which was that new sniper added last season. It's like that really fast shooting kind of semi-auto gun. Did get some pretty big buffs overall, mostly damage ranges, but also its long range damage was increased and some better multipliers. So they might be trying to sneak that in as like a replacement to the Signal, because the Signal 50 got nerfed once again. The Signal 50 was definitely like the most popular sniper used in Warzone ranked. Another nerf to it with its damage multipliers to neck and chest. So most likely what that's going to mean is it's going to be always a 3-shot unless you can mix in a headshot. So it'll probably be a lot harder to use. And then the SPX, another not one-shot sniper. So adjustments to all the one-shot snipers here, or not one-shot snipers, I'm sorry, got buffed. So if you are someone that plays ranked, SPX might be a replacement because its ranges and multipliers got buffed on the SPX, so it'll probably almost always be a 2-shot now. And then the Crack might even be a viable option as well. Okay, coming into submachine guns, SMGs here. I do think we might finally have a few SMGs that have like not been good for a while, might finally become meta. We'll have to see how much these changes are. The Bass P, which is a gun that I actually felt like have been a little bit underrated. It's very versatile, good mobility, very good range, got some really nice damage multipliers. So basically it's chest, limb, and neck multipliers all got buffed. So maybe that will make the TTK faster, or at least make it easier to drop that time to kill down. The Fennec. Remember, the Fennec was just busted. It was the best SMG at the beginning of the game. It got nerfed like into the ground. They keep slowly buffing it kind of each update here. And so we're going to have to see if this will become a faster TTK and finally sneak back into the meta. But it got some buffs to its ranges. Also got a headshot multiplier buff. Its neck multiplier did get nerfed though. And then also a chest decrease. So we'll have to see. I think they're trying to make it more of like, if you hit a headshot, the TTK might be really good. So it might be like a higher skill gun. But if they're going to nerf the neck and chest, it's probably not going to be like a global type meta where everyone wants to use it. And then the Lockman Shroud, which is that new burst MP5 variant. So this is interesting. This could honestly be concerning. They nerfed the semi-auto damage, which I think most people use it in burst. I always liked it in burst better, actually, because guns do different amounts of damage, whether it's in semi or burst or auto. But the burst multipliers all got buffed, and it already had the fastest time to kill for an SMG when it was on burst. It's hard to use because it's a burst. So if this made the TTK even faster, yikes, this thing might kill insanely fast. And then the good old mini-bok, they keep trying to buff it, but they just refuse to buff it enough to make it good. All they did was buff the mid damage, so that it's going to do a little bit better at range, maybe make it more viable, but Again, the Minibot has the slowest close range time to kill for an SMG. Just not really ever going to be viable until they finally decide to buff that. MX9 is an SMG that has always been solid, but really held back because it has just like good TTKs, but the damage per mag is too low. Well, now they hit it with some really nice multipliers. Torso, limb, and neck multipliers all got buffed. So MX9, if that drops the TTK, will absolutely become a meta SMG if these do change the TTKs. But we'll have to see because they don't tell us these numbers, so we have to go in and test it and actually see. We do have a few weapon bug fixes here. Nothing super crazy, things that I was really noticing. We do have now, so new update on the final level. The final level will be 1250. That will be the highest level you can ever reach in this integration of Warzone. I don't know if we're going to have like a total level reset when it comes to Warzone 3 or MW3 Warzone. I don't know what we're calling it at this point, but that is going to be the max level we reach. A lot of bug fixes here. I kind of skimmed through this and I didn't see anything in particular that I was noticing a lot, but I'm sure there's things in here that some of you guys have noticed and ran into. Now, another very big point to talk about here, the download is going to be larger than normal. And the reason they're saying that is because it's preparing for the upcoming MW3 beta. So I think some of that information for the beta is going to be on this download so that when the beta rolls around, that update will hopefully be smaller. Moving into Spec Ops, we do have a few bug fixes here. Multiplayer did get a few new maps here. We have La Casa, which is a 6v6 map. We also have Coro Village, which is a 6v6 map. And then this one I am very excited about, King Gunfight. This was the map that was one of the popular gunfight maps back in MW19. And I used to love to use this map to warm up on when I do my warm up against bots and multiplayer. So I'll probably start using this one over Shipment for myself personally. But always really love that map. And then Fight, which is very similar to Shoot House, it looks like, is also going to be a smaller gunfight 2v2 type map. Several more bug fixes that come specifically for multiplayer there. MW2 ranked play, so multiplayer ranked play here. The big things I want to highlight here just really quickly, they are restricting all the new guns here, and then there are some additional restrictions from previous seasons carrying over. Doesn't look like anything too much really is changing here. We do have some new unlock rewards for MW2 and Warzone ranked play. They're kind of similar. MW2 is like more... They're both purple, but they're just a little bit different. Here's MW and this is Warzone. And then you've got some really cool vehicle skins actually for the Warzone ranked ones. And then the emblems for multiplayer. So I won't cover too much of this as none of this really is changing otherwise here. Now, this is going to be the playlist update of this week of so from now until the next week. So we have our normal ranked trios, Al Mazrah quads, Vondel duos battle royale. It'll rotate between Vondel and Al Mazrah for solos, and then Resurgence, it'll be Vondel quads, and then rotating between solos, duos, and trios, which I'd assume it's going to rotate between just Ashika and Vondel. It seems like they put in Fort Resurgence, and they just like gave up on it. I don't know what the deal was with that. I think that was kind of a poor executed map that could have been made a lot better, but I digress. Now, there is going to be a new Nuke Champions Quest reward for Al Mazrah. There's going to be a new AR blueprint, but it says if you want to see it, you have to earn it. So I'm sure somebody will get that here and post that on Twitter or something along that. They re-enabled the Signals Intelligence contract. I don't remember which one that was, to be honest, but hey, it's back now. This one, I'm interested to see what it's going to be. They're saying there's a quality of life improvement to how loot drops from supply boxes. So maybe it's going to drop and spread out a little bit more so it's easier to find. I'm not really sure. We'll have to see. Apparently, they are taking PRDs, the redeploy things, out of buy station, and they're replacing it with the medic vest. And then they're also increasing the price of the reinforcement flare up to 7K. This was very popular to use, especially in ranked and battle royale. A few more bug fixes here. I guess there's some bug fixes with getting stuck in the deployable buy station here, assimilations, fix an audio issue with supply boxes. We'll have to see what that entails here. Warzone ranked play here. Again, not a lot changing here. They are restricting the RPG and Strela, which is a very good thing. It looks like they are adjusting deployment fees just a little bit as well here. And then again, same things we talked about earlier with the rewards. Again, most of this is pretty much all the same here, so I will scroll through that. DMZ, I will cover this briefly. I am not much of a DMZ player, but one thing I do want to point out. So, number one, you can only assimilate up to 4 players now. It used to be 6-man teams. I know was a big thing. Another thing that I saw pointed out is look at the cost of UAVs. UAVs were 12K. They're now $100,000. I know you get money, I think, a little bit easier in DMZ, but yikes, they are making things really expensive at the buy stations in DMZ, which is interesting. And then we have a few more bug fixes here that you can pause on and read through if you want. Again, I don't play DMZ, so this is all new to me. And there you go. So, okay, here are my thoughts really quick on what is going to be the meta as we go into this new season. When it comes to long-range ARs for Resurgence especially, hands down, Tempest Razorback, I think, will be by far the best AR. Because previously I said the best AR, or my top three was M13, Cast-Off 7.62, and Tempest Razorback. Well, the M13 7.62 got nerfed, the Razorback didn't. So that's my go-to long-range AR. Now, SMGs, they didn't nerf any of the meta SMGs. So the Lockman Sub, the ISO 45, the Vel, the Vaznev, they didn't touch any of those. So all of those will be in the same spot. All four of those are really good. They all kind of have their strengths and weaknesses, and you can make a case any of those are the best SMG maybe. However, we're going to have to see, is the Bass P and the MX9 worth it? The Fennec, I don't think will be worth it, but maybe if you hit headshots, it could be crazy good. But I think the two to really watch out for will be the Bass P and MX9, because those might become really, really good if those buffs were big enough. The other gun I'm also interested in is, again, that Lockman 7.62 got a huge buff. It was already crazy good, so 7.62 will be another crazy broken gun with fast TTKs probably, but it's very hard to use. And I am interested to see, will the Crack 300 sniper be worth it after another buff to it? So we shall see. Thanks for watching, guys. We will be probably going live on YouTube here, streaming the update whenever you're watching this or done watching this. So come over here, check out the live stream. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.